this. We've got a great night. This is going to be a lot of fun. We have as our guest, we have Natalie Morris, and we're going to tell you a lot more about her in just a minute. Let her tell her own story. But happy to have on here my wife, obviously, as my hosting this with me. And we're actually hoping to have somebody else that might pop on here shortly. Yes. We'll wait to make sure she actually makes it on before we announce her. So, and you might have just saw what I cleared there.
Well, I want to tell them.
Well, go ahead.
We're expecting our awesome daughter-in-law to pop in shortly. Our amazing Melody Hodges.
And then we'll tell you all about the connections, because the connections are really, really awesome. So, Natalie, why don't you go ahead and just start sharing with us a little bit of the story of how you kind of came out of the church box and got to where you're at, because you're doing something, actually, most of our audience is probably watching. Most of them, I'm sure, are not familiar with what you do and how you do it. But the story of how you came out of the church box and got to where you're at now would be really helpful as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This is just a pleasure. My name is Natalie Morris, and I'm with Quantum Command. And I started out this journey because I got really sick. I was a totally normal as kind of you can get, really.
Are any of us normal?
I was pretty normal. I had like a normal kind of life, and I was doing this sort of organic granola flip flop. You should be. There's Melody. I see her coming.
There she is. Hey, Melody.
Welcome.
Yeah, I had to kick Caleb out because he was gaming in here, and
our son.
That sounds right.
I gotta get on here.
Well, good for you. So everybody, this is Melody Hodges, and she is married to our son Caleb Hodges, and they live in Austin, Texas, and we're just delighted to have her on here. And again, we'll share the connections in just a moment. So Melody, we already had Natalie starting her story, so we're going to let her go ahead and finish that, and then we'll jump in together here, okay?
Okay, thanks. So, hey, Melody. So, so I just basically was kind of like doing worship at the regular, typical church, and I was having babies, and I was married and just home and kind of the stay-at-home mom, and I was really pretty typical in terms of organic. It was weird for normal people because if you just would do organic food and you would take these supplements and you would do these things, you would stay well. You would be well all the time. You would stay well all the time, and you would never be sick. And so after the birth of my third child, Jacob, who's now 11, right after, I started getting really, really sick, and I didn't know why. I had this flu that I couldn't beat. I was hot all the time. I had a fever. I just thought, I just have a flu or something. But instead of weeks, it dragged into months, and I could not figure out what was wrong with me. And I said, well, we're just gonna hit this with everything we have. I'm gonna do all natural stuff that I know, and we're gonna kick this thing out, and it's gonna be a no big deal, and we're gonna move on. But I couldn't. I kept getting sicker and sicker, and I kept not being able to function during the day. I had this extraordinary fatigue. I was raising 3 babies, 5 and under. I had a ton of energy before while I was pregnant with Jake, and then after, something just bad really happened. I pin it back to a hike that I took 2 weeks before he was born. We were trying to move things along, and I think I probably got bit by a tick then. I can't prove it, but I'd never got a bullseye rash or anything. But over time, I kept getting sicker and sicker within about 4 or 5, 6 months. So I live on the East Coast. So on the East Coast during that time, Lyme disease was the thing. It was rampant, and all of my peer group were dropping left and right of Lyme disease. Wow. And so one of my girlfriends basically said, you have Lyme disease and you just need to admit it. You've gotten bit by a tick and that's what you have. And I'm like, you guys think everybody has Lyme disease. You guys think if you have a headache, you have Lyme disease. If you trip on, and stub your toe, you have Lyme disease. You guys think you have it. So they started to show me how I could sort of create what is called a Herxheimer reaction, where you could create like an immune response if you put something in the body that Lyme disease would react to. And so I just thought, this was going to be easy, no big deal. We were going to move on. And I crashed and burned like big time, major Herx reaction to this thing. And she said, you know, if you don't, you're not going to react if you don't have Lyme, but if you do have Lyme, you'll react. So I crashed and burned, and I just thought I had Lyme disease. So I was like, okay, well, now we know what it is. Great. Now let's attack it. So we started attacking it. I was doing all the research online. I was farming out every single Lyme person I knew for cures. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's working? What's not? And I just could not get well. I couldn't get well. The muscle testing came in sort of out of a desperation. What I didn't know is while I was sick, I had sort of this obsession with quantum physics, and I didn't know why. I just was sick, and so I would just throw movies about Einstein or quantum physics into the DVD player while the kids are playing. I'm on the couch half dead, but I'm absorbing some of this material. I don't know why. I'm just watching stuff that's stimulating intellectually. In the meantime, I had a friend of mine who muscle tested, and we kind of started working together. And I thought, well, you know, muscle testing could help. Let's just see if the body knows what's in the body. That's all we need to know is if it's Lyme and it's hiding, which is what they say, it hides in tissues and deep, places of the body, then we'll be able to figure it out. I can take some stuff that is most beneficial and we'll be able to make progress. And we were not finding what we thought we were going to find. Wow. We started getting really good at the muscle testing part. And we started getting really good at asking the body really pointed questions. And the better we got, the deeper the rabbit hole went. Mm-hmm. And once I started to learn how to muscle test myself, I didn't have to rely on her. I could kind of do some of the work at home. And eventually we began to find that these things that were in my body were breaking the classical rules of physics. They were doing things like bending light and lensing light and bending gravity and like really weird stuff that just sort of we stumbled on. And when that happened, the bottom fell out of my paradigm. I mean, you can't do this work and there be something in the body that's defying classical physics and like not have your paradigm trashed. So my paradigm very quickly got trashed, and I started to develop this work understanding later. It took several years. This was not a light from the sky, download. It was trial and error, miss it, get it wrong hundreds and hundreds of times, working on basically my family and my friends. That's pretty much what I was doing. Yeah. And my kid, when I hit this milestone, I turned this corner where I was starting to get really successful. And my son, Isaiah, was developing profound autism Asperger's type symptoms. And I just was like, we're not doing that. This is not what we're going to do. Because he didn't get vaccinated. I didn't vaccinate him. We had a really good lifestyle. There was no major environmental stress that would push him there. Yeah. I turned a corner with the work and discovered a couple of things about quantum pathogens, what they were doing. And I removed them from his body and the rest of the kids and some of my friends. And all of a sudden we started seeing success. Wow. He completely changed within now that was when the work was a lot slower. Now it's a lot faster, but within 6 months, this kid stopped having these symptoms. And within a year, he was totally normal. Wow. And I knew we were onto something. My friends started to come out of the dark, and they started to be able to work again. They started to be able to function and do extracurricular activities. They could stop some of the therapies they were doing. And it started to work. And I started to get a little bit better, and everyone around me started to get better. Then word kind of started to spread, and then I had to sort of start charging a couple for a little bit of time because I had to kind of be pulled away from the kids. And then it just grew and grew. I was mainly dealing with Lyme disease folks at the time, and I was having unbelievable success. Like, these people were walking away going, we're done. We literally don't need you anymore. We are totally well. Wow. Excuse me. It wasn't until the Dan Duvall show did sort of really I get another bottom falling out of my paradigm again, because those folks came my way and they had within their bodies things I had never imagined. And that's where we are today, is unfolding that paradigm of not just pathogenic causes of illness and toxin oriented causes of illness, but that there is an integrated layer technology piece in the body that we've been exposed to and has been put in our body at least for decades, if not for longer than that. And the removal of those things, using this work, using the muscle testing for figuring out what's there, and using the quantum release, the body's own, sort of superpowers, I guess is how you call it. Those things together really give us success with people that just really can't function, that really have stopped functioning.
I want to jump in here because we're gonna dive into all that really, really deep, I think. We'll see how deep the rabbit hole will let us go tonight. But I just wanted to share, this structure here with Melody being on here and Natalie, and it's just been a fantastic journey of what the Father's doing. And I don't know if we're in the middle of it or near the end of this journey or what with this, because it was probably
a year and a half,
2 years ago. I'm not sure when it was that Caleb and Melody were driving from Sacramento back to where they lived at the time in Santa Barbara. And they had been listening to Dan Duvall talking to you. And it was on the Fringe Radio Network. And so they were telling us about it. And so we started kind of looking into it. It's like, wow, this stuff is really way out there. But the interesting thing is, as we kind of pursued it, followed up on it a little bit, and then, Adena contacted you and actually went through it, and
Caleb and Melody did.
Yeah, Caleb and Melody did it first, so we let them
pigs.
let them be the guinea pigs. But the amazing thing is, a few months later, I get this message on Facebook, from Messenger, from this guy named Michael Basham, and he says, "Hey, we'd like to interview you." And by this time on Fringe Radio Network, and so by this time we'd looked at Fringe Radio, and I'm like, "What? Where in the world did this come from?" Because we were just starting to kind of teach what we're teaching. And anyway, I texted back and I said, do you really think we're that radical? And he sent back another message. He says, "Yeah, I have it on good sources that you are." So anyway, that just led, one thing to another. We went on his show, and then he said, "Well, you guys ought to start your own show." And I'm like, that's weird. So anyway, long story short, here we are. Kingdom
Full
Talks
circle.
has been blown up to be, something that we never expected. Michael Basham is part of our Next Age, Next Agers. We call ourselves Next Agers. That we're just looking at what is the Father doing in bringing in this next age that we see coming. And, so Melody was so impressed with this. Let me back up just a little bit, because I think you've probably taken about half of our core team from Kingdom Equipping Center through your process, and many of them had fantastic results. And I think because of all this, Melody, is now working with you.
Second year student.
That's right. Doing a great job.
So, Melody, why don't you just say hi and introduce yourself a little bit, say what you want to say, because we're glad to have you on here. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited. It was quite a journey. It was kind of random how I came across Natalie. I was going down a YouTube rabbit hole one day, looking up different conspiracy theories and different things like that, of course. And then all of a sudden, on the side, I saw the Fringe Radio Network. And then that was like this whole new world of me looking through different interviews and stuff. And then I saw the one with Dan Duvall. And then the first interview I listened to was Natalie. And I had already kind of been going on this health journey for a while, probably not as extreme, but similar to Natalie. I had a lot of like weird stuff going on in my body, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, couldn't eat like anything, was tired all the time. And that went on from about 23 till about 26, actually, when I saw Natalie. We listened to her and had some crazy stuff happen when I listened to her that made me go, okay, God, like, are you on this? Because this is really bizarre. I listened to her for a few times. And then every time I'd listen to her, I would have like the Holy Spirit just like fall on me, and I would feel God's presence. And I'm like, okay. And I had already been trying to figure out for a while where I was going with like holistic health and healing, because I had a big passion for it. so yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled across it. And then I had a session with her, and this doesn't always happen for everyone, but for me, like the healing was pretty instantaneous. Like I felt it was like night and day for me with how I felt. And so, and with Caleb as well, there was a lot that we had such bad fatigue at the time. So yeah, then I just kind of decided I'm going to do the school, and then I was telling everybody about it. So now everybody's going through it, and I'm a second-year student. And then obviously with Gil and Adena, I'm Caleb's wife, so I've been listening to Kingdom Equipping Center for quite a while now. I follow a lot of the teachers and speakers that they have on the show, so it's really exciting for me because I'm kind of nerding out every time they have a guest. I'm already like watching their videos and reading their books, so it's really fun and exciting to be on here. So yeah.
It's so good to have you, and I'm just so glad your testimony made it so that I got a scan, and I had been battling what people normally call fibromyalgia for 30 some years, and I'd say probably I was 75% there, but today I would say I'm 100%, and so I'm so grateful to be free of all that stuff and to be able to live fully normally. So it's been a huge blessing in our life and in our family.
So, you ready to dive in? Natalie, you got something to say before we...
Well, I was just going to say, I've been on both sides of the world where I've been really, really well, and then I've been really, really brutally, debilitatedly sick, bedridden, extremely ill. And I believe that this is the season that the Lord is wanting people to literally kind of rise out of their beds and live again. There is a reason why you are sick. This is not because you have bad DNA or you made a mistake in your life or God is judging you or he's trying to crush you under his feet or he's persecuting you. God doesn't even have sickness to give people. God is just, that's what I've always believed, that he doesn't give sickness. Sickness is not part of his plan. He never planned for sickness to sort of spring from the garden, this perfect place that he built. So there's a reason why we're sick. And what we're discovering with this work is that there's a real sort of, I hate to use the word conspiracy, but I'm just going to use the word conspiracy. There's a real thing happening. And it's creating this horrible dynamic in our body. And the sickness is a manifestation of stuff that's in the body that's not supposed to be there. It's just not. And then what we find is when we remove this with this work, people go back to just living their life. They go back to doing what their destiny is supposed to be. And they're no longer sort of being hammered by these symptoms and this exhaustion that keeps them from literally doing what God has put in their DNA, put in their body to do. So I just wanted to interrupt there with that.
Yeah. Well, so go ahead and explain to us, what is it that you're doing? What is it you're seeing? How is it helping people? Because it actually is very, very, it's phenomenal. And, again, we've got so many testimonies that indicate that, what you're doing is affecting people in a very positive way. So go ahead and just dive in.
So there's
Don't pull any punches.
Yeah. So there's two parts to this work. There's the muscle testing part that I ask the body questions. I connect with you. It is over the phone. It's over video. I do not muscle test you from afar, remotely, with your name and address and your phone number and your picture. That's not what we do here. This requires a physical connection where we are basically in the same room in terms of just like a Zoom room or on the phone, or we could be together in the same room as well. But
now, this is not a spiritual thing. This is a physical quantum thing, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. There's no spiritual interaction happening when I connect with you muscle testing. That's really important. And I just finished a broadcast on my YouTube channel about that, about how that muscle testing piece works. It's called Muscle Testing Isn't Witchcraft Until It Is. So I talk about the difference between types of muscle testing on that. And so that first piece is the muscle testing where I'm getting hard data. I'm getting what's ever been in the body, where was it, how much was it, how did it come in, When did it come in? And you can figure out a lot of information just with that. If I only did that, that would be really helpful to people. Mm-hmm. But without this other piece, the quantum release, this is just a learning tool. It's just a way to go, all right, well, now you have to do tinctures, and now you have to do this, and now you have to do that. The quantum release resolves and solves the problem of what we find in the body when we muscle test.
It's so amazing.
It is. And the quantum release is basically the installation of the body of you, not me. I'm not a healer. Your body does this. It takes whatever's in the body, technology, pathogens, toxins, whatever's there, breaks it up into its original sort of components on a quantum scale, and then quantumly releases it out of the body. And the body is capable of doing that. What we have always thought is that all detoxes have to happen manually, and we have to take all this stuff to make it out of our body. And what we realized when this started happening, we sort of stumbled on the quantum release idea. As usual, it's always let's try this and see what works. And it's a God idea, and we figured out that it was a God idea. It was never really our idea. And we started doing it, and I'm telling you, my clients completely started changing. And I thought, well, this is a win. We're doing this the right way. Then we discovered that the only way to get this layered technology out of the body is the quantum release. I was using quantum release early on in the work to get rid of Lyme pathogens, to get rid of toxins, to help people move through that. But as I discovered target individuals, discovered what was in my own body, what was also in my kids' bodies, that the quantum release resolves the impossible problem of getting the technology out of the body, which of course springs forth the question of what's technology doing in the body to begin with. So that's a whole, another discussion that we could still talk about tonight if you wanted to. But this unique work allows us to resolve impossible situations. Things like fibromyalgia, they're just going to medicate you for the rest of your life. You're just a cash cow for the medical industry at that point. And there's no intervening. There's nothing that can help you unless we figure out what it is and get it out of the body. Like a splinter. It's just like a splinter. You get a splinter in your hand, and it's so darn big and it's so darn deep you can't get it out. You need a little bit of help. Mm-hmm. Somebody gets it out, and your hand heals itself. That's what happens. Is the body removes it. I help your body remove it. Your body removes it, and you heal yourself. Yeah. You literally heal yourself.
So you're welcome to keep going. We do have some questions coming in, so you can keep sharing first, or I can give you a couple of questions. What would you like?
Just do some questions. That would be fun.
Okay, so one of them is, does your treatment work with autoimmune disorders?
This is one of my favorite questions, because we've been taught by the medical industry that autoimmune disorders is the body attacking itself, right? And that we don't know why it happens. It just happens. So we're going to put you on an immune suppressor so that will stop and you can have a little bit of remediation with your pain. When I first found out that there were devices in the body that could bend light, what that means is that essentially that device or that particle, that pathogen, that technology becomes invisible. When you bend light, light moves around you and you cannot be seen. That's what bending light is. So the body has never really been attacking itself. It's been attacking invisible things it can't see. It can feel its presence. It knows it's in these areas. It just can't see it. So it releases a lot of antibody response, immune response to areas, increases inflammation, and it perpetuates because it will never be able to see this thing because it will always be able to bend light and it will always win. And so the autoimmune diseases are one of the first things that I started having success with, particularly like the lupus, Lyme disease type, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, those types of things started to just, and the arthritic pain as well. I had psoriatic arthritis that was absolutely profoundly debilitated. I mean, I had to have help getting up out of my bed, going to the bathroom and coming back to the bed. My husband basically waited on me hand and foot. It was horrific. It was miserable for both of us. But this work identifies those things and the body stops attacking what's there relaxes, the inflammation releases, and you get relief in those areas.
That is so good because so you just scanned me and tested me this earlier this week anyway, and it was one of the things I've constantly dealt with for years. Is this allergic reaction, constantly clearing my throat and so forth. And what you did and explained was really powerful. And what you just said there actually put some two and two together for me, so I could see it even clearer.
Right.
So it helps me understand what took place and now what my body has got to do in order to begin the process. Because I still, I engage with myself in the heavenlies to receive my heavenly DNA, and I work through that process as well to. So now I know what I need to ask in getting that cleared up. So it's really, really powerful, really, really interesting.
Here's somebody in the chat says, "Love me some Natalie. My sessions with her changed my life."
Oh, that's great. That's great. Wonderful. I tell you, the sessions are so open. You just really get a lot of data. It's some of it can be like, we do prayer work too. We pray, and we, if I'm kind of getting something from the Lord, I'll say what I'm getting, but it's so data heavy. A lot of people don't understand what's really happening in the appointment. It is extremely detailed and data heavy. You are walking away going, oh, that's why I was sick when I turned 5. That's why I had this breakdown when I was 13. This is what happened when I went and got my knee surgery, why my leg would never recover. You get this really hard data that you walk away with and go, oh, that makes sense. I could never know that unless somebody looked in the body and asked. And that's why this work is different. Nobody has ever really been able to ask questions like this before and find out stuff about technology. And people ask, like, well, how long has this technology been in the body? That's a really good question, because I work on 80-year-old clients that had technology put in them when they were children.
Wow.
And there's multiple vectors, there's multiple ways to get the technology. It's integrated into our society, so it's normal. And it's weird for us to go, that's how you get technology, because it's so integrated into our society that we don't even think about that.
And I think it's important. One of the things that Adena and I are teaching people, and it's really some of the hardest things, is we really have to let go of some of the filters and paradigms that we've lived by. Because if we continue to live by those, then we will never be able to see things from a different perspective. And for myself, growing up being a skeptic, pretty strong skeptic, it wasn't until the Father really got on me one day and he said, do you want to continue being a skeptic and miss out on what I have for you? Or do you want to start researching things to see how they fit? Now, not everything fits, but I've found that probably 90% of the stuff that I just pushed aside has some sort of relevance to it, and that some of it has a lot of relevance. And it's really opened me up to be able to step in and do the things that we've been able to do in the heavens and so forth, because it's been super, super powerful.
And I just want to give a testimony of this too, because I was skeptical of the muscle testing going into this. I had the testimony of Caleb and Melody, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to risk this. And in the process of muscle testing, you had said that palladium came into my body in my early 20s through injection, and I didn't say anything to you at the time, but I was like, oh, this proves this is not right, because I didn't have any shots or injections that I know of, that was past the immunization age and all of those kinds of things.
Right.
But I just waited on it, and about 5 minutes later, the Lord just prompted about that when I was in my early 20s, I did get B12 shots. And
Yes.
when you told me that in California they put palladium in their B12 shots, and for me that was just so confirming, because I didn't even remember, but my body told you what was going on. And
it's all data. It's all data from the body. And I think, Gil, what you're talking about with these new paradigms that the Father is taking us into, this isn't my work is just another part of this change that's happening that we're seeing.
Yeah.
We're seeing a massive change happening in the church. We are seeing people that are unsatisfied with the typical church that was even happening 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, people going, I don't know where to go to church because nobody gets it. Everyone is asleep. They don't understand sort of this undercurrent that's going on, or at least they're not willing to look. And it becomes hard on the body of Christ because they want to engage with a community, and the community just ends up being online, which is fine. But yeah, I just think this work is such a paradigm shift, like what you're talking about, Adena. It's just, it's like, oh, aha, we can actually find information about things that we didn't even know about, that we forgot about.
Yeah.
And that was,
We've got a couple of questions.
Actually, we've got quite a few
A
questions
lot of
that are coming in.
questions.
So
One quick question you can answer is they're asking, is continued treatment needed?
right. Good question. So there are two types of people that typically work with me. There's the first kind who generally has sort of like standard stuff, has 2 or 3 things, and they get a really good appointment, and then they might need 2 or 3 sessions over the next couple of months, and then they don't need me anymore. That's optimum. That's like the best case scenario. I actually really enjoy it when people never see me because they don't need me anymore. That means they're going and doing their thing. I much rather be able to work on people about 3 or 4 times and it be over for them and they just live their life. Because remember, once you have quantum release, you have it for the rest of your life. So quantum release maintains that healing for you rather than needing to come back and get a scan and when do I need this and I think I got bit by a tick. Should I come in and look? How does the quantum release work? So that group of people, I really, I hardly ever see anymore because they're long gone. Then there's the other group of people who you would probably put into the category of targeted individuals, DID, SRAs. They tend to be in this work for the long game. And the reason is because they have what is called layered technology. Layered technology is what we're literally in the middle of now. We're in the middle of carving off all this technology bit by bit by bit by bit. And it is a very long process. So far, it's been a very long process. And it's a very difficult process on my end and on the end of these targeted folks. Because when I remember that all this technology is gridded, which means it's all quantumly entangled. So just sort of an example, I find a piece of technology. Well, let's say Melody's a targeted individual, which I don't think she is. I don't think you have layered technology. I don't remember that being like a long-term issue for her. I think I'd know about it. I think we would have already talked about it by now and she would have had some symptoms. But say she had a piece of technology that's the same as mine, okay? We're quantumly entangled. She and I are quantumly entangled with those 2 pieces of technology, not because we're quantumly entangled naturally, but because those 2 pieces of technology are quantumly entangled. They're gridded together. So when I find it in my body and or a client's body and it's new and I've never seen it before, and I tell the body to get rid of it and I show the body how to do it and get it to quantumly release, the entire grid collapses. It's what we call grid work. So that quantum entanglement, the thing about quantum entanglement is like this, is like if these 2 things are quantumly entangled, whatever you do to this one responds immediately with no time delay. It's just a quantum physics principle. Yeah. This technology in the body is so advanced that it creates grids. So when I remove it out of one person, it collapses the whole grid and it's removed out of anyone on the planet, anywhere that has this technology. Now, my targeted folks know when this happens because they feel it. They've learned the pattern of this work so well because they've worked with me long term, where they say, oh, you did something, didn't you? My phone will blow up. I'll have like 10 people message me and text me, what did you do? I felt great and then I crashed and burned. Did you find a piece of technology? Because what happens is when we remove a piece of technology, the remaining infrastructure that is there comes online, retaliates against that person for getting free and begins to reintegrate those symptoms back into the body again. So you have programming trying to take over old programming over and over and over again. That's the other group of clients that I work with.
So I just want to add in right here, because when I was hearing all this for the first time, even though I've tried desperately to get rid of most of my skepticism was going off the radar. And I don't even remember how it came about or who brought it up, but somehow Gordy Rose pops up.
Yes.
And I find him on YouTube. And now Gordy Rose is the creator and founder of the D-Wave computer, which is a quantum computer. Now, quantum computers don't really, or at least as far as we know, they don't completely work, at least the ones that are out there, don't necessarily work at the quantum level just yet, but they're getting there. And he at that time on the video, I think he had sold 5 of these, $20 million each. He sold one to Google and to Berkeley and to, I don't know if it was Facebook, I can't remember, 5 different major places that he had sold these to. And the video is of him speaking to a group of businessmen and people that could finance and help him build his business. So you wouldn't get real hokey and weird with a group like that if you really want them to give their money to you.
Right.
And he goes off on this whole thing of reaching in, that these computers will be able to reach into other dimensions and pull even entities. I think he even used the word entities,
yes.
Pulling them back into this dimension where they don't belong. So
yes.
Part of what I know that you've talked about is that some of the stuff that we've found in us is actually quantum stuff that is
yes.
from another dimension that is trying to pull us out of this, and it gets us out of time. It gets us out of whack.
It does.
This is really way out there.
It's hard for me to resist talking about this because I am very familiar with that talk that he gave. There are 2 talks that are really critical that he gave about that. There's one where he's trying to sort of headhunt and get folks on his team. And there's another where he talks about entities coming, and there's just sort of like this antediluvian type entities, like yucky guys. And but anyway, a part of the Kindred Project. But in that first one where he's kind of talking to a large group of people, he talks about being able to, that these are already happening. These he makes it sound like it's not quite there yet, but let me assure you, these things are already happening because they are happening in our bodies. They've put these things in our bodies, quantum particles, Higgs bosons, created algorithms to program these bosons to interfere with our genetic material, to extract resources from other dimensions so that they can have resources in this dimension they did not have. They use the word resources. They're talking about time. They're talking about entities. They're talking about being able to leap forward into time, extract data out of time. And it's what I've said before. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the other guy. And if you know 7 seconds ahead, like that movie Next with Nicolas Cage, you know just a little bit more ahead, you can always be a god in your own world. And that's the goal. They are using these quantum computers already. Google is just a tip of the iceberg for what they've been doing in secret. And CERN is also a large part of the type of technology that's been put in our body. They use this, the more extreme targeted individuals will be able to report this because they talk about being fragmented, their time being fragmented, the Mandela effect happening to them personally, them being resourced out, them being tortured electronically, having sort of voice to skull technology, ringing in ears, constant harassment, buzzing all over their body, electric weird crawly things happening all over their body. And these things are because of the technology being integrated with the quantum AI concept. Artificial intelligence is running this whole show. Without AI, none of this stuff would work because nothing has the resources to be able to manage billions of people with technology in their body, but AI does. And AI has resources that are infinite when it's merged with quantum computer type work. And that is what they're doing. And we've never known it because we've never been able to look into the body like this. But here we are. And our goal is to take all this system down.
Well, I can tell that we're going to have you on the show again.
We got so many questions.
Yeah, there's so many questions coming in. And so let me go back. This is from Tanya. And let's do this question. And then I got a question from Melody. So this question is, does this work with autism? You kind of talked about this earlier, so that's,
Yes.
yeah.
Autism falls into the category of the targeted individual type because they tend to be the goal, remember, of AI and technology being in the body is to merge the human with AI and with technology long term. So I wouldn't say that they've totally won on that front yet, but they are winning. They were winning until we got a handle of all this. But autistic folks and kids are autistic for different reasons. My son was a really easy autism situation where it was Mycoplasma fermentans incognitus. It's a pathogen that can control the body, can control thinking patterns and behavior. And that was sort of an easy fix. He's never relapsed. We've never had that type of a situation. Most autistic kids now are because of the integrated hardware that's been put into their body via vaccines, because vaccines are just technology rollouts. That's all that is. So those tend to be longer game type clients.
So just real quick, I'm sure people are wondering, how in the world do these things get in our body? You just mentioned one of the ways by injections. What are some of the other ways that this stuff gets in us?
Some other ways early on that I was discovering was genetically modified mosquitoes and ticks. And you'll hear them talk about releasing genetically modified mosquitoes from time to time because they have to release that. They have to tell us what they're doing. They just don't tell us what's in those mosquitoes. And a quantum pathogen called MFI was in the mosquitoes. It was also in the ticks, and the ticks would also have this sort of co-infection of the Lyme disease. We always thought Lyme disease was the infection, and the mycoplasmas were the co-infection, but they're complete. It's a total opposite. So mosquitoes, these ticks, also the aerosolization of the Morgellons program and the chemtrail programs. Those were they are still, I think, a huge piece. Although I think we've taken quite a few of those grids down. We don't really get pathogens and the toxins so much anymore. The Morgellons grid is going down, but I still have people that come in and have Morgellons stuck in their system. They can't get rid of it. Even though the AI and the Morgellons is no longer connected because some of the grids that we've taken down with this work, they just have it stuck. So we get rid of that stuff. But the aerosolization of communities using the chemtrails has been a big piece. People get technology in their body injected in them when they're born. Some people are targeted in the medical system. Some people get it when they're age 5, when they go into kindergarten. So there's multiple things happening. So
you realize you would make, if you're not already, but you would make a really good Hebrew, because with every question that is asked, you by the time we're done, we've got about 100 more questions with one answer.
5 minutes class. So every time I see Natalie, I have like 30 questions. So.
Yeah. So Melody, the question I wanted to ask you is, you're actually a second-year student with Natalie learning this stuff. What is that like, and what would you share with people? What would you want them to know?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a lot, I would say. It's a lot of paradigm shifts, and you kind of have to be ready for that. I was lucky that I was sort of already like researching a lot of conspiracy theories and understanding like how certain structures work in the medical system and different government systems and stuff like that for years before I got to know Natalie. So I had already kind of had that down, and I'd also been really sick for a while and couldn't get well. And I was like, I'm 23 years old. This should not, I should be able to get to bed. I shouldn't be like this depressed and have like no passion and be in a level 8 pain all day and can't eat dairy or gluten or can't function. I wasn't doing there was like a year and a half to 2 years where I couldn't even like ride a bike, lift weights. I could only walk, and I would force myself to walk for like 30 minutes a day just to get any physical exercise. And previous to this, like I had been like a dancer and everything like that. So it was, for me, I guess I was already kind of in this journey of God sort of unveiling some of this stuff to me and showing me kind of what was going on. So by the time I came to Natalie and some of the encounters I was having, because when I first listened to her talk, I had some lovely entities show up in the room, and I was like, "You're not allowed to be here," and I kicked them out, and then felt God's presence and the angels very quickly. But I was like, "Well, that's weird. If this isn't God, then why are these things coming at me just by listening to her talk?" So I think I was prepared, but honestly, it's been an awesome journey. I am so excited about this because I feel like I knew that I needed to move in healing and go in a healing direction. But I feel like with Natalie, I'm getting down to the root and the truth, which is what I had been on a journey to find, because I was, looking into things like detoxing and had done detoxing myself and taking these supplements and learning all of that. Also great, like naturopath stuff. But there was still something intuitively inside of me where I was like, there's something missing. This is not normal. Like I would go on these stints of watching Lyme videos of people that would document their Lyme journey on YouTube. And there was this one couple where their story was so devastating and it was so evil that I was like, this cannot just be Lyme. There's and I started the video and I wept through the entire video for an hour, and I was praying out to God. I'm like, this is not just Lyme. This is not you. This feels very evil. So I'm just excited to be taking this stuff down and be a part of this team and learning. And it's a lot of like heavy material, but it's so like every class I'm like so excited and so engaged. And I also was interested in quantum physics before coming to Natalie. So I'm just loving it. Like it's all the things I like learning. So yeah.
She's a great student too. She's a wonderful student too. And she has the incredible passion and the know-how. And I tell you, you can learn this. People can learn this. It's learnable. Yeah. And it's not impossible just because you don't know some of these quantum physics terms. I teach you them. They are really, they're knowable.
You make some dumbed down for us.
Oh, no.
They're like heavy terms, but like there's all these great like PBS videos. You're like, okay, I get this. Like,
yeah.
So Natalie, I don't want us to run out of time because we are getting there fast. A lot of people are asking, how do they reach you? Now we've already posted, so anybody watching, make sure you look in the comments and in the chat area, because we have posted the information there. But I'm going to go ahead and show my screen, and I'll show your website while you maybe tell us a little bit about it, Natalie. Go ahead.
Sure. It's quantumcommand.net. And you can hit the book a session, and the first client appointment is what you want to do. You want to schedule that. That's about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on kind of what we find. Sometimes it's simple and it's like, oh, you're done. That's it. And then we do a couple of follow-ups, and then you don't need anything anymore. I'll be able to tell, by the way, very quickly whether or not which category you would fall into. Are you going to be in the targeted, group? Or are you going to be just sort of probably a simple situation? So, in that client appointment, we unlock all that. Follow-up sessions are just scans, or like 30-minute scans. We come in, we check to see what's going on, and we just look at what's happening. So you can find me there. You can also find me on my YouTube channel, Quantum Command. There I am trying to post videos. I hope the next couple of videos will be clients that are, I have one that's a targeted individual and then one that's not, but has stayed with me for several years because she saw such a good change. It's just sort of like a normal situation versus like, okay, this is what a targeted individual looks like too. So those are the two places to get me. I'll be totally honest, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook because I'm just sort of, I like my personal life being personal. I feel like Facebook's really invasive, but I do put some things. Sometimes I'll put articles up there every once in a while, and I always put the videos that I post. But if you subscribe, then you'll get those notifications anyway. So that's where you can find me.
So another question is, does your work have any effect on addictions?
That's a really good question. It's been one of the hardest things to unplug because I used to work in addictions. I used to work in substance abuse prevention. I used to work with kids and families. I did substance abuse assessments. I have close relatives, family members that are recovering addicts, alcoholics. I've not been able to work on a cohort broad enough and with true addiction in the process to know there is nothing I would love more than to work at a facility that had, or just contract out to be able to work with folks that had addictions, because I know that those folks have some level of technology recycling trauma. That's another thing that technology will do, is recycle trauma. And folks will be driven to substance abuse use because of recycled trauma they can never get over. And that is a way that some people are targeted. They will be targeted just recycling that trauma. You never get over it, and you have to use in order to relieve the pain of that trauma. And I would love to be able to work on that type of group of people, but just have not had the opportunity. I think it would make a difference.
Okay, so here's another question. This one's from Mail, and she's asking. Well, she says, I've done pathogen parasite cleanses with herbs and always felt better after, but tiredness and gut disorders always comes back. Why?
It depends on what's going on. Sometimes the programming, if it's a technology, sometimes the programming will give you relief if you obey rules. So if you start to obey rules by doing sort of like you fast or you do protocols or you do something like that, you'll be relieved temporarily and then it comes back. Another thing that can happen is you have technology that's not grid, that's not, a targeted individual. It's just kind of hanging out there, and your cleanses actually are getting rid of stuff. You're actually kind of detoxing stuff that's coming off the grids that the body can see now that I'm removing some of the AI type, interactions, and then you get rid of it. But whatever's left over comes back online and reintegrates those symptoms back into your body. It only takes one tiny piece of technology to really sort of shut the body down. What they are trying to do is not just make us sick. They don't just, that helps and it funds their little sick projects. But it also, the whole goal is to mess with the DNA. It's to merge us with another entity so that we lose our free will, we lose our ability to choose, and we lose what it means to be human. So that's the end goal. Some of these other physical problems like digestive issues, gut issues are just symptoms of that integration going wrong, because your body's like, oh no, we're not doing that. And it begins to react. And also it's fighting against the technology. The technology is pushing against the genetic material to do what it wants to do.
Natalie, what about the products part too, where you can start to get well, but you have a product that's just keeping you in that sick zone? Because
good question.
Excellent.
Yeah. I had a client like that today where she actually had a weird pesticide like DDT or something. It was really unusual. I hardly ever see stuff like that. And she came in, she's like, I've not changed at all. And I said, actually, that's sometimes common. Let's check to see if something's going on. I checked her. She was getting lead every day from a supplement she started taking. And I said, well, what's the supplement? She says, it's this glucosamine, chondroitin, something. And so we checked it and it tested bad for her. So she worked with me about 2 weeks ago. And she never really had enough time to kind of come back online and her body start healing before she started the supplement. The supplement was trashing her system with lead. And so it was doing the same thing that the other toxin was doing, maybe even worse, actually. We get her off of that supplement, then her body can come on. So yeah, it's not just, the pathogens, toxins, and technology. There's garbage out there that we're putting in our body and we don't even realize it. It disrupts our hormones and it does the same thing as these other pathogens and toxins. Yeah.
Okay, so Tanya's also asking, did you say that you could do this in Zoom or do you have to meet in person?
I do not have to meet in person. In fact, if I meet someone in person, if they insist on meeting, it's like triple the amount for the call or for the visit, because I don't need to. We don't need to do that. We do everything online or over the phone. So I can't remember the last time I saw a client in person, unless it's at a party and we're just hanging out and they want to be muscle tested.
So what is the connection then, or how is that connection made, through the phone or Zoom?
It's a good question. Same way we can talk on cell phones without being hooked together with a wire. It's a circuit. And in this case, it's a quantum circuit. So it's just like turning the light on or off. We can do it with melody. You guys want to see how to do it? Yeah.
All right.
It's easy. All right. So this is all it is. I say yes, no. Oh, I love testing melody. It's like testing sunshine. Yes, no. Test melody at this time. Okay. Say yes, melody.
Yes.
Good. Say no.
No.
All right. And I'm connected with her and I could just ask her body questions. Now, if one of my kids came in and kind of distracted me, which is pretty common on an appointment, and interrupt me, oh, we're not connected anymore. Okay, this is not a permanent connection. It's a brief connection for as long as I can ask her questions, and then it breaks. we don't have to do any sort of spiritual work about closing and permissions and any of that, because it's a physical circuit. And the sort of thing that makes your brain explode is what we can talk to other people's bodies far away. Yes, we can do that. We don't do it remotely without their permission.
Yes, that's
Sort
key.
of like that is spirit work. That's spirit work. This is physical work.
Yeah.
So you have to be present. So that's
just,
all we do is that.
And just for anybody that's watching, as far as that quantum entanglement thing, that's what you're doing is through that process of quantum entanglement is you're connecting with people. But that is a real thing. It's been theory for decades, but the Chinese just in the last year or two have proven it, and they proved that you could have 2 photons in 2 different areas of the world, and instantly when you subjected one to something, the other one would respond to it instantly. So
yes.
It's absolutely a real thing, and it's just learning how to engage with that. And again, Yeshua obviously engaged with so many things that we still don't understand, and we just need to again shift our paradigm. Quit being skeptics and pushing it all away. You can't believe in something that you keep pushing away and say you're not going to believe it. It's not going to work for you when you do that. But when we step in and begin to engage in faith, then that's where things begin to change.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's right.
Somebody was asking about heavy metals.
Mm-hmm. Heavy metals happen from time to time. It's actually not as common as we would think because they tell us everything's got heavy metals in it. But really the heavy metals are just the technology that's rampant in the body. But every once in a while, I'll find people that have had heavy exposures to lead, aluminum. A lot of the heavy metals that I began to discover on the front end of this work were from chemtrails, because the heavy metals, the barium, strontium, radium, the smart dust, the aluminum, all of those heavy metals, what I discovered later, had smart dust embedded in them, which meant, and then when you ask the body how it came in as an inhalant. Mm-hmm. So, well, I'm no dummy. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if you get it from an inhalant and there's smart dust embedded in this stuff, it's deliberate. So like heavy metals don't have smart dust embedded in them on accident. It's all programmed. And so we breathe it in. Well, where are we going to breathe it in from? From the sky. So when we actually took the chemtrail grid down where we don't get a lot of that aluminum, barium, strontium anymore, we still see some of the chemtrails going on. I'm still working on that. We're trying to get moving on that too. But that's gridded technology, what we see in the sky. All of that is quantum gridded technology. Those heavy metals, they come into the body. They usually go into the lymph system. The metals are just vehicles for the smart dust. That's really all it is. The smart dust turns you into an antenna, and then they're communicating with your genetic material at all times.
Okay, so maybe a couple more questions. We're really running out of time here, but sure. Somebody's asking, is it too late to enroll in the university?
It is this year. We're kind of at this point where we're about 4 weeks in. Because I don't ever take anyone that I haven't worked with. So you have to work with me first for a little bit, and then for the most part, I don't break that rule. But our next season is going to be next August. But if you're interested, check out the website. There's a place dedicated for the Quantum Command University, and don't give up. Check out my videos on YouTube. Those will really kind of give you the primer that you need to sort of whet your appetite for the quantum work.
Okay, well, we've got more questions here, but they are, Natalie, I don't know if you have a chance to hop on YouTube, look at the chat later, and on Facebook and look at that, because you might be able to connect with some of these people to help answer some of their questions that we didn't get to.
In all your free time.
Yes.
My copious amounts of free time. No, it's like 9 o'clock here. We're fixing to go to bed here on the website.
But so we're going to go ahead and break here in just a moment and go to our behind the scenes. And I think on the behind the scenes, I'm probably going to ask you, what's your worst case scenario and the most interesting scenario that you've run into? Because that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But any last words for everybody while we're on here before we head out?
Do you have anything, Melody, to say about anybody thinking about getting into this or taking the classes or anything?
Yeah, I would just say take some time to think about it and pray about it and kind of know a little bit of what you're getting into, because I think sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to get all the information and to realize that there's more to the story when it comes to health in our bodies. Mm-hmm. My only advice is just to pray about it before. But yeah, if you're interested in this kind of stuff and you're you're nerding out listening to this, it might be the thing for you because it's really fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melody.
All right. Well, again, we thank all of you for being on here, and we thank Natalie for coming on as guest today.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much, Natalie. And
Thank
for
you.
Melody, first time coming on. So good to have you on here with us as well. And so we're going to go ahead and go to the behind the scenes area. If you want to be part of that, you can jump over to Patreon, and you get there by going to the kingdomtalksmedia.com link up at the top. And you'll have to type that in. It's not clickable, but go there and go to the members section and become a Patreon there. And you won't be able to watch this show immediately, but we can get you hooked up so that you can watch other shows in the future. Watch the entire thing without getting cut off anywhere. So blessings to all of you. The Patreon, I forgot to say, that's where people are supporting us and helping us continue to put this word out and get the message out to everybody.
Hey, we meant to talk about our immersion retreats that we're starting in Nashville, November 7 to 11.
Yeah, that's the one coming up right away. But if you're watching this months down the road, go to Kingdom Talks Media because we'll have more information up there for anybody who wants to join us there.
And we're going to be looking at spirit, soul, and body and really diving into the whole gamut of all of.
Our hope and expectation is that we will call him a healer, or maybe we'll get Natalie to come to one of these for us.
Yes.
Hey, I'm there.
bless
I'm
us.
with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would be awesome. All right. Well, again, thank you all. Blessings to you, Natalie and Melody. Stay on just for a moment, and we'll go to the behind the scenes section. Love you guys. Love
Bless
all of
you.
you. Talk to you later. Okay. We are now to the behind the scenes section. So we have a handful of people, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 people that might watch this part. But again, it keeps growing. So as it grows down the road, there might be a whole lot more. So what do you want to say that you didn't get to say?
Well, I tell you, the nefarious nature of this, what has really messed, I'll tell you, this work didn't come easy. It really was an extreme journey. I was not a conspiracy theorist before I started doing this work. I thought life was very, very simple, very straightforward. And the people that said stuff was coming from the sky were just a little on the weird side. And I didn't have time for any of that. I wanted to live my life. And then things began to unfold. And the Lord just kept saying, there's more. There's more. There's more. Yeah. And I'm going to give you strength to deal with the fact that there's more. My life is so radically different. I call myself a recovering Baptist. That's where I was. I was a good Baptist too. Thank you very much.
Card carrying.
Yeah, but then I learned about walking in the Spirit. I attended some Spirit-filled churches there for a while, and that's really where I got the empowerment to really walk, for the Lord to walk with me and me walk with the Lord, and understand that this was not a normal situation, what we were dealing with. Mm-hmm. I was so happy that my kid was healed. I was great. I was happy that my friends were healing. But then when sort of everything got flipped on me was after my Dan Duvall show and all his folks started coming my way, and I went, whoa, I don't even have a paradigm for some of the stuff that's in these folks' bodies. And the integration level. The integration level, like your computer is an example of layered technology. You have your camera, you have your screen. Now we're lucky to have touch screens, and you have your mouse and you have your microphone. All that's integrated. Then you've got the hardware in, then you've got the software in. That's the type of deliberate functioning going on in the body with this layered technology. It is so profoundly evil when you begin to see what their agenda is. There is a hidden agenda going on. And I'm not a fear porn girl. I'm not someone who's like, okay, now be scared today and be scared all day long. I'm not afraid. I'm rarely afraid. I'm mad. I'm tired of seeing my clients suffer for no reason. No reason than for them to continue their selfish, Luciferian, anti-God agenda.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's maddening. Wow. It is.
Yeah. So, unless somebody else has a question, I am curious. What would be some of your most out there strange encounters that you've come across?
I think what was really, I was completely unprepared for. I mean, I'm telling you, when I say I was a good Baptist, I was a really good Baptist. We didn't believe in demons and entities and all this other stuff. And while that might seem like typical normal for the sort of spirit-filled life, I was not even close to prepared for the stuff that showed up in my bedroom while I was trying to come up with how to get well. I was discovering technology, and I was being attacked on probably, well, the first year I did the university was probably the worst year in terms of just like the paradigm shifts, because I was having 3 or 4 nights a week, I was having intrusive spiritual attacks that were physical coming into my body and trashing me. And my husband and I were always recovering from either a spiritual attack or from some type of physical manifestation of this stuff. And that's my own personal life was the weirdest. Honestly, I've seen weird stuff happen with other folks that are targeted individuals. Those types of people, the SRAs and the DIDs, they have the same level of activity that I do because of the integration of the technology and the types of portals that get opened with this technology that Cordy Rose is talking about, breaking fabric time, fabric, space type stuff, extracting resources. Oh, well, they have to extract them in our bodies. They're using our bodies to extract them because we are sort of like quantum computers. Our DNA is like a quantum computer. So they adhere to our genetic material, use and abuse our genetic material as a sort of like a power source in kind of a way, but also the information is really critical. The DNA data, algorithms that the DNA sort of gives off, they use those algorithms to break open portals to allow spiritual entities. And we wonder why we're under attack all the time. Well, the stuff's in our body doing all this. And so we have seen specifically when certain technologies are removed from the body, certain attacks stop. I mean, completely stop. So yes, is this work physical? Absolutely. This work is physical primarily. The spiritual stuff just happens because we're removing these strongholds out of the body that are physical things going on. And a lot of the stuff that's been put in the body, for example, like black goo. I mean, who has a paradigm for black goo? Not me, but Hollywood does, because Hollywood made a movie called Lucy. And that movie, Lucy, which I hated because it was so violent, but a lot of my clients are like, you need to see this movie. It's about black goo. And I'm like, whatever. So I finally watched it and I was like, this movie's about black goo. Holy smokes. They already know about this stuff. They worship this stuff. Stranger Things is basically a real life telling of how they woke something up and couldn't put it back to sleep, and it began to terrorize everyone. And that is what they're doing. We just don't see it in sort of suburbia, but it is really happening, and it's happening in our bodies. Black goo is one of the weirdest things I'd ever found, and God had to prep me for a really long time about that. And black goo is basically genetic material that is sentient. And its goal is not to harm or kill the human. It's to merge the human. Not right now, baby. There's goodnight kisses happening in a little bit, bud. But it's to merge with the human. Wow. It's to integrate so that they become one. And these movies tell us that story. We don't know what they're talking about. Morgellons is like the Borg. I mean, the Borg and Morgellons is so darn close to one another. It's incredible how they just, if you would just give up your will and give up your soul and trust it to AI, then all your pain would stop.
Wow.
I'm so that's sorry. What they offer.
I'm going to have to slip away.
Okay.
But love you guys. Love you, Melody. We'll see you.
See you later.
Speaking appointments and things to do.
I just want to add something to what Natalie's saying with the black goo, just to confirm some of the stuff she's saying. So when I was a teenager, was in the shower one morning and I started having black liquid run down my legs, and it freaked me out. Like I was like, this is so far, and it just kept coming and coming, and it was coming out of my legs. And previous to this, I had a lot of like weird skin issues as a kid, like where I would just like break out all the time, and I've had weird skin issues my whole life. But I had that incident, and then Natalie, I asked her if black goo had ever come into the body, and she confirmed the exact around age, and I hadn't told her that. So I just want to confirm that this stuff is real. And to go along with even the Morgellons, I had MFI and Morgellons. And when she talks about time fragmentation, I felt that for sure. And when she removed the Morgellons, I and Caleb too, for about 2 months, every night before we would go to bed, him and I would have memories flooding our brain. And and I was having every night all these memories come back that I did not remember. And it was almost like my timeline was getting reintegrated, and it felt like a relief. I was like,
Wow.
oh, like this just
Wow.
to kind of say some of the stuff, like it sounds out there and it sounds like this is out of a movie, but once you start to have some of the stuff removed, at least for me, I've seen the direct fruit from it, where it's like, okay, like even for me, like hearing about Morgellons at first, I was like, oh, that's nuts. But then I was having memories come back to me every night and going, okay, well, something's happening here. So
And Morgellons, if you don't mind, if I could just say really quick, Morgellons is not the fungus pathogenic framework, that parasite that they are trying to tell us. They will try and tell you that you have parasitosis, that these things that are coming out of your body is not really real, or other like holistic areas. In those areas, they'll say, well, it's this, we need to navigate it with this and this and this, and this is working. Let me tell you what Morgellons is. Morgellons is a particle collider. It's a linear particle collider that creates itself within the body after inhaling essentially the aerosolized filaments into the body. Usually it goes into the cisterniculae of the lymph system and begins to build itself using programmable matter. It is a particle collider that assists in the fragmenting of time by colliding particles, creating Higgs bosons in the body. It's like a tiny CERN in your body, quantumly entangled with CERN. So CERN is getting all this data as well. Think not that CERN is not involved. CERN is so very intimately involved with this stuff that's been in our body. We've just never been able to track it till now.
I mean, for the conspiracy theorist, this is like right up their alley, and I'm sure it's got them going big time. And now, so we've got 4 people that are watching live, and there'll be more that are going to watch this later, but they've got some questions. And Muriel, who is actually, again, she doesn't like it when I point her out, but she's the person who is on Friday nights. She's behind the scenes making sure all the questions get to us, and that all the links get put up there. So thank you again, Muriel. But she was asking, are you, Natalie, are you the only one doing this, or are there some of her students, are they trained and ready to minister?
We're getting there. This is our 3rd year. Not many people survived that first year of the very first, beginning of the charter year. There was so much spiritual warfare that year that a lot of those folks just couldn't navigate. It was too hard for them. I have one person that graduated from that first year, and she is rejoining this second year class, Melody's class, to reintegrate some of the work. After the short answer is, we're getting there. We're getting there. We have some folks that are in the 2nd year class that are beginning to learn how to work with people individually. That's what the 2nd year is all about. It's the first year is learning how to muscle test. The 2nd year is basically the hardcore. Okay, let's get you in, throw you in 12 feet deep type stuff. And I know that I have folks that aren't. I know that there's not anybody taking clients yet from those years, but we're working on it. The goal is to move this work, expand it, so that I don't have to work so hard, that the folks can get the same work from my students, because I'll be honest, I'd rather teach all day. I just love teaching. I love working with clients too, but I also love teaching, and I would love to do that more, farm off my clients, some client work to my students. And so that's the goal. That is absolutely the goal, to teach a lot of people this.
And did I miss it? But I don't think I heard. Do you have a time frame that you think some of them might be starting to get ready to do it? Or
I think there's going to be some of them that'll be ready by the end of this year. I think some of the 2nd year students will be ready by the end of this year for sure. I know Nancy really wants. Nancy's sort of my, she's like the 3rd year student kind of. She's going into the 3rd year, and she's ready to start taking folks for me to do some supervision with. So yeah, we're getting there, but right now, unfortunately, I'm the only one right now. I wish I could. The goal is to develop a network on the website, is so that I'm not the only one, and then other practitioners, as they want to be referred to, can go through their own website, or I can link to them, or that kind of thing to broaden the network.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so Adam, he's a big supporter of ours and is always on every show, and we love Adam. He's asking, and this is a question we'd all be interested in, I think, but this would be for both of you too. It's like, what did the beings look like when they visited you? I'm sure there's different ones, but
yeah,
I just looked like aliens, and I didn't. So it was kind of funny. Sorry, my dog.
Hi, Bella.
Yeah, she's upset that I'm on here, not playing with her. So they just showed up I saw it, obviously, like a picture in my head, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to scare my husband. But after about an hour of me seeing this, he turned to looked at me and goes, "Are you seeing like aliens?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
Like, I'm seeing them too. I'm gonna just ignore them. And then I prayed for them to leave and for my angels to come, and instantly they were out. They're,
Yeah. So
I
would
just don't
these
have time for things like that. I just show up.
Absolutely. So would these be because there's a lot of different aliens. Would these be something that I think are the most common that we see, the grays, or something else?
They looked like like, I don't even describe it. They looked like they were long, like stretched long and tall, sort of like a grasshopper, but black. I don't know if anyone has seen something like that, but that's kind of what I saw. Black, kind of looked grasshopper-ish. And when we listened to Natalie, we were driving back home to Santa Barbara, and we listened to her in the car, and we both started to feel stuff, and then we got home, we started to see it.
I remember you guys calling us and saying you guys were freaked out.
And that was interesting. I was like, well, that was interesting. I mean, just from this podcast, wow. But that was just a clue. It was like, okay, well, the enemy obviously doesn't want me to look into this.
Therefore,
so that
I will.
Therefore, I will.
Exactly what I'm going to do, because this is probably from God. So then I listened to, I think you had like maybe 2 or 3 podcasts with Dan Duvall at that point. And then I listened to like a video you had on like your website or something. But then after that, every time I listened, it was just like Holy Spirit. And I was like, do you want me to do this, God? And he was like, yes. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
So yeah,
Awesome.
So that's kind of how,
And Natalie, how about you?
So my pattern, this is sort of the pattern how this would work. I would be in bed. Almost all the attacks happened at night. I rarely happened. They rarely happen in the daytime. That started to shift a little bit, but most of them were at night, and they all varied. I can't think of something I haven't seen, because each of the entities each type of entity was guarding their own type of technology.
Interesting.
So I've seen one time I had 3 little not little, okay, they were huge reptilian guys come in and basically say, we're going to come into you, we're going to dwell in you, and you're going to be our girl, and we're going to make you famous, and you're going to be like Lady Gaga, and you're going to be skinny, and you're going to know the future, and you're going to be rich and powerful. And I'm like, honey, help me right now. You're trying to jump in so we're doing all the spiritual warfare, and it takes quite a bit of effort to get rid of some of these guys. I've seen like what Melody's talking about, what you sort of think about the aliens. I never saw the long grasshopper, but I've seen like
actually, now that you said reptilian, that kind of reminded me. So maybe that's more of what it was. Because said, oh, that's kind of what, like some kind of weird like lizard bug thing.
Yeah, right.
More sense of what you just said.
Yeah, like, and just so you guys know, I don't watch alien movies. Like, I'm not like a big. Yeah, I
do watch Stranger Things. So.
Yes, but I didn't have any framework for any of this. When I see it, it's like, whoa, it's there, and I'm telling my husband. But I've seen a guru spirits, shaman spirits come and try and jerk me around. I've seen who you would think is sort of nobility in spirit form, bad guys, not good guys. Those types of things coming at me, and they always varied. Usually, they were spirits of fill in the blank. spirits of darkness, spirits of evil, spirits of, and there was, Jezebel, those kinds of things that would look sort of demonic like, but these other things, these reptilians, these alien grays, these shamans, these other things, they were like different. They were just sort of like a higher up kind of feel, like more intelligent, more specific, and definitely connected to the technology pieces. That's all I was doing. I was just trying to get well, and all of a sudden my life fell apart. And that's really what happened. Like I couldn't find technology, new piece of technology, without getting hit with a new spiritual attack. And it was always it was like 57 variety, whatever that thing is. I mean, there was a ton of activity going on. And if I had been, this is the difficult part for my personal life, is if I had been at a church at the time, they would have probably said, there's probably a sin in your life. You're probably just demonized and you need to get all these demons out. And it would have, because I've been in those situations before where I've been helpless and having a deliverance, and the blame was directed on me. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not thinking that I want to be sick. I'm not thinking that I want these things. And that was hard. That was hard to have to pull out of church, because I knew that they wouldn't be able to help me. I was on my own, and it was me and my husband trying to get through this together, because we knew that we had tried to disclose some of this to church folks, and it just kept coming back onto me. Like, well, it's all you really want. And that's really unfortunate. It's where the church is right now. They don't really have that paradigm yet kind of broken through.
That is the most difficult thing. I mean, again, my wife and I are trying to share the love of God in a deeper, bigger way. And it's like, because of the paradigms and the filters, people are like, no, God's not that good.
Right.
God's not that good.
So he's infinitely good. He's amazingly good.
And there's just so many paradigms that it's not just the church. The world itself has lots of paradigms that we hold on to, and until we're able to at least let go and consider, then we're going to be walking in the dark for a very long time.
Yeah. And if you listen to the UFO community, I listen to some of those folks. I'm not a big UFO community follower. I don't watch Ancient Aliens. I don't have that kind of time. And I try and keep my data a little bit closer to me, so I don't have other things influencing my data, what I'm finding in the body. But basically what I continue to hear from reputable Christian people who are involved in that community, witnessing to that community, is they all keep saying, there's something coming, get ready, there's something coming. And that, I think, is why God's looking for a paradigm shift. Is he's like, there are things on the horizon that if I don't explain them to you early, you're going to recoil to your own destruction when they come up. When they start showing up, you're going to recoil and not be able to defend yourself or know what's going on. You're going to be confused. You're going to lose your faith. And I think God is preparing those that are trying to be awake. I'm still trying to be awake.
That's a fascinating thing, because it just hit me just now, because you come from a different paradigm. You're not cut from the same cloth, so to speak, as Adena and I and the people in the groups that we, where we walk. You are in another paradigm, a different paradigm. And yet what I find so interesting is the new breed is arriving and moving forward. And it's like, Melody, you're right in the middle of it, because you're following Adena and I and the people that we follow, and you're totally involved with Natalie. So it's like, you guys are going to wind up being the superheroes of this next age that's coming. That's so cool.
That'd be awesome.
Well, Melody is in the thick of it, because it's her generation that's going to deal with things that we have never had to deal with. And they are the most open. That's the funny part, is that millennial generation seems to be most open to spiritual things, even spiritual manifestations that might be demonic. They're open to something else besides terra firma. They want something more. Whereas us old Baptists, we just want to go, sing our hymns and get our good preaching and go home. And that's what we've done for spirituality. That got boring, by the way, for me. So I don't really consider myself.
The hungry are moving on. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Well, I would love to just keep going, but I think we just need to do another show at some point. Hopefully before the end of the year, we can get you scheduled again, and
Absolutely.
would love to go much deeper. I think this was very good proof that a lot of people are interested, and so we had a good group on here tonight, and it was powerful. And
Yeah.
yeah, people definitely got a lot of questions. I think we have more questions from you in doing this than we've had from anybody else in a long time. So
Yeah, it spurs a lot of questions. It does.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's been my pleasure, really. I love you guys, and this has just been an honor for me, honestly. And thank you for all you guys do. I know both of you guys are running headlong into really equipping the body, and we need it. We
Yeah.
really, I still need to be equipped. I have equipping that needs to happen.
Yeah, we all
So,
do.
because I have a paradigm shift change too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Well, and I can't end without saying that you did the scan on me, and I have to joke about this because Melody's heard me say it. Well, maybe do you remember me saying anything about jokingly about having superior DNA?
Oh, yeah, you know what? Caleb must get that from you because when we first met, I'm not kidding you guys. Every week, I'm not exaggerating. Every week he would look at me and say, "I'm the next stage of human evolution. My it's divine."
That sounds like
I haven't heard you say that, but that must be where he gets it.
Well, Natalie, you want to tell her what you found?
Yeah, this guy has been oh man, what was it?
Wait, does
How
he
many
have
times?
Do you have natural superpowers?
He has natural
That's what I
superpowers.
thought. That's what I
I'm
thought.
telling
Yeah.
you, it is ridiculous. I
Gil,
think
I thought this because I was like, Gil doesn't ever get sick, and he's always like,
Mhm.
he's always running. He's like my dad, and I was like, he must have a natural quantum ability.
He does. Was it like 9 times they tried to
I think
inject
he
you with
said
black
9
goo?
times, yeah.
It was like 9 times, yes, injected with black goo with the microchip. It's very invasive from early age, from like age 5. They tried to give him everything. I mean, they tried to give him Lyme disease. He got a tick bite. He got rid of everything immediately because he can bend light. He can bend light, but he couldn't navigate the onslaught of smart dust because smart dust is just a numbers game. It comes into the body, it may or may not bend light, and it just gets, stuck over time. And that's all that he had left. I'm telling you, without the smart dust, he'd have been just fine. But yes,
Yeah.
superpowers all the way. I was like, man, why couldn't I have your DNA?
Well, unfortunately, Caleb didn't have that. Bending light ability.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Caleb. Yeah, he had MFI more. He had all the stuff I had.
He had all the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty unique. I don't think I'd ever seen anybody that had been injected with black goo 9 times and not kept any of it. So those are extremely unique.
Well,
Congratulations.
It's a blessing. I have to just give the honor to the Father. So it's very good.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Melody, for coming on here. That's been a blast. And
Yeah.
Natalie, oh man,
Thank you.
seriously, thank you so much. This has
it's
been
my
so
pleasure.
eye-opening. And again, you'd make a great Hebrew for every question you answered. You drummed up at least another 100. So
That's good.
We'll have to have you back on as soon as we can.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. And to all of our people watching, bless you all. Thank you for your support. We so love you guys. Can't do this without you. All right. Take care. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.